Love is knocking on your door, and we're delivering. Welcome to the Lover List, where Reddit's most charming love stories come to life. Don't be a love snob. Like, comment, subscribe, and turn on notifications to join the love party. I told my husband I love him for the first time in 3 years. We've been married almost 10 years. Mid-40s, kids, house, jobs, the usual things. This isn't a story with a villain or a hero. We're both wonderful and terrible in our own unique ways. There have been plenty of ups and downs over our 13 years together. At some points I questioned whether this marriage was particularly troublesome or if I had just been woefully naive about the realities of marriage. Regardless, we kept going and things always seemed to mostly tip toward good. A few years ago, I discovered some half-truths that made me really question his character. Rather than confront him, I agonized over what these stupid lies meant. I kept it to myself, afraid of what a potential confrontation and ensuing argument would lead to, and quietly began thinking of leaving. I felt like I was married to a stranger, but wanted to leave on my own terms and not be backed into a corner. Then COVID hit. As a first responder, he worked long, dangerous hours. I homeschooled the kids for 2 years. My focus switched from finding a better life to just surviving the one I had. We muddled through, growing more and more distant. By the time our youngest finally went back to school, he'd been sleeping on the couch for 6 months, and I didn't care. Then we had a big financial setback that neither of us could have prevented or anticipated. We spent all of December fighting. We had always seen eye to eye about finances, but suddenly this issue was killing us. I decided to take the kids camping for a few days to give us all a break. He was furious and didn't speak to me the whole time we were away. When I returned, the silence continued and I was at the end of my rope. I asked him if he wanted a divorce and he didn't answer. He asked me if I loved him and I couldn't answer. I cried for days and had nightmares for weeks. For years, I had put distance between us to protect myself, and for the first time, he was doing the same. I spent so much time feeling like the wronged one. I never realized my behavior had broken him. Late one night in early January, I tiptoed out to the living room and watched him sleeping. I laid down on the narrow couch next to him and told him everything. That he felt like a stranger, that I had planned to leave, and that I was sorry for freezing him out for so long. His immediate reaction was relief, and I was shocked. I expected anger or defensiveness and received compassion instead. We fell asleep in each other's arms for the first time in years. By the time we woke up the next morning, everything felt different. I felt lighter than I had in forever. I decided to lean in and embrace it and not let the wall go back up. We've been going on dates, texting each other throughout the day and talking about life, where we are now and where we want to be. I know we aren't magically cured and need therapy to learn how to communicate, but for the first time in a long time, I don't feel alone. We had a great day yesterday, and I finally knew things are going to be okay. This morning I dropped the kids at school and drove straight to his office in my pajamas. I called him out to the parking lot to tell him I love him for the first time in years, and we both cried. If you're in a dark place in your marriage, try to turn outward to your partner, not in. Don't waste years being angry like I did. So now I'm sitting in my office, crying, tears rolling down my cheeks. I guess because I did a similar thing once with my now ex-wife, but I waited too late to take the first step. We were too far gone. I'm happy for you. Damn, now I'm crying. I'm sorry it didn't work out for you and your ex-wife. It sounds like you've learned and won't make the same mistake twice. I know I'm very lucky to get another chance. In retrospect, it was a good thing it didn't work, but I couldn't help but be reminded of what it was like to take that leap and say what needed to be said, lay it all out there and fight like hell. And I was reminded of the hurt I felt when I realized we couldn't be saved. I'd like to point out that I didn't come up with my super dramatic username. It was randomly generated as my throwaway but somewhat fitting. That was the random name? Wow, so weird, right? Thank you for sharing this eloquently written, heartfelt, deeply personal account of your relationship. I applaud you both. My marriage was in a very similar spot the last 2 years, and we're also, finally, finding some light and becoming a team again. It's nice, I missed it. Happy for you guys. Way to go. Thanks for sharing. I know everyone's love languages are different, but you know what counts to me, as much as saying I love you, are thoughtful compliments and thanks. You handled that really well. I'm glad our kids have a wonderful dad. Sad to say, I rarely hear those things. Sometimes people say I love you in a rote, that's what people are supposed to say kind of way, and to me it doesn't carry the same weight as actually observing and appreciating your partner. Being appreciative is so much more important than I think people realize. I've heard some people say that they shouldn't have to thank their partners for doing the bare minimum. But sometimes on a bad day, hearing that thank you is really uplifting and makes both of you feel more on an equal footing. It sucks to feel like you're being taken for granted, and a simple and sincere show of thanks goes a long way. Yes, every week we have a marriage meeting where we make our menu and grocery list together, and we start by saying one thing we appreciate of the other from that week. It's so nice to have a glimpse of how he sees me. It's my highlight of my week. Thank you for sharing. I hope you both continue to grow, and that you both find new and healthy ways to communicate. You've rediscovered something precious. Please continue the work to foster it. I know we are all strangers on the internet, but things like this give me hope. My husband and I have been together for 13 years. We've been through some rough times. Addiction tore us apart several times. We're clean now. I was raised by a fairly cold father. My ex did a number on me, and my husband has paid the price. I sometimes withdraw myself. He never gives up on me. We've reinvented our relationship so many times and are so strong because of it. Redditors are so quick to say divorce, but there's so much that can be done to rescue the relationship. Congrats! How do you deal with the lying and half-truths and not trusting what your partner says? It's so hard. I didn't handle it well at all. His deception didn't have anything to do with infidelity, which I am thankful for, but it left me with no framework to understand my feelings. I am deeply pragmatic, and while I would hate it, I definitely understand why a partner might cheat, and I've dealt with those issues in past relationships. In this case, he grossly exaggerated a personal tragedy when recounting it to me, and others, for what? Sympathy? Attention? Boredom? I couldn't wrap my head around why anyone would do that, and it made me feel stupid for caring about my own damn husband. It was heartbreaking, and I decided I wouldn't be caught in that position again. It wasn't until the moment we finally talked about it that I was hit with a startling revelation. His lie had nothing to do with me. It was a reflection of his own feelings, his own needs, and his own shortcomings. Separating myself from his actions finally allowed me to have some empathy for whatever feelings had led him to telling those lies in the first place. Instead of a cruel manipulator, I was able to see a flawed but overall good person. It sounds like you might be dealing with your own difficulties, and I'm so sorry for that. I hope you find peace one way or another. Man, that's so big of you. I know I have a problem with black and white thinking, all or nothing. I think my partner is a really great man, but some of his shortcomings happen to be my most vulnerable weaknesses. If I'm triggered, I am an animal and will do anything and everything to protect myself. I will also put up a wall, and I'm pretty good at keeping it up. It's so hard to tell myself he is a good man with flaws versus he's not good for me versus he's a villain. How do you keep that in your head and not slip into resentment for him hurting you? I thought I was successfully compartmentalizing my resentment for all those years. It was only once everything was out in the open that I realized I was carrying a burden that didn't belong to me. For 3 years, I don't think the resentment stemming from this particular situation will return, but of course I've thought about how I'd handle difficult situations if they arise in the future. I hope that I'd trust him enough to share the emotional load so we can figure it out together. I relate to your black and white thinking and being in self-protection mode, but I'd rather emulate what I've taught my kids about speaking up when they feel they've been wronged. You can't hold someone accountable for your feelings if you haven't told them your feelings. It's so simple yet so hard for me. Great story and an excellent lesson in the importance of authentic and honest communication. So much was bottled up for so long that should have been confronted and managed sooner. Don't bottle it up. Confront it and manage from there. If not only your sake, but also your children's sake. Sometimes you have to stumble in the dark to see the light. So glad you saw. My husband and I have been married for almost 12 years and together for almost 22. There was a time when I was preparing myself for what I thought was the inevitable. It took courage. I hate confrontation, but I finally was able to talk to him about the things that were bothering me, and he responded with understanding and compassion. He doesn't always show this in day-to-day interactions, but when I open up he seems to find it. I try to show him compassion day to day, but then less so in arguments and discussions. Depends though. But I've really tried to keep a clear head and stay cool so that fewer disagreements turn into shouting matches. No one wants to admit that marriage is work, and so a lot of people go into it not knowing what goes into a marriage. At the end of the day, it's worth it when both people want it to work. Your post is a beautiful example that a simple talk and sharing how we feel can change so much in a relationship. It should be obvious that an honest conversation is a base for a good marriage, yet for many of us it is the most difficult. My parents had one of those marriages without any conversations that would be about their feelings or needs. It was so painful to watch their shallow interactions. They were both so lonely. Still are. OP, you are not only on a track of saving your marriage and making it better and stronger, you are also teaching your kids how to communicate with someone who's supposed to be our biggest ally. What a great post. It's so easy to slip into a pattern of neglect and feeling like you are the wronged one. I'm so happy that you were able to take a step back from your feelings and actually talk to your husband again. And you did it before it was too late. My husband died a year and a half ago. I try not to think about this too much because it would drive me crazy. The number of things I wish I had done differently. What I do know is that I'm the only one who offered to do anything for him while he was dying. Seriously, say and do all the things that you deep down know you should do and say. I hate to use this overused phrase, but don't sweat the small stuff, because that's all it is, small stuff that in the long run doesn't matter. The last thing you want is to leave this world regretting years of your life, regretting things you did or things you didn't do. Make it right now, and that's exactly what you did. You made things right. Good for you. I'm so happy for you and for your next 13 years with DH. Thank you so much for being so candid and sharing your experience. It seems like weathering the storm, even when we don't feel like it, yields more favorable results than quitting. As long as there isn't abuse or infidelity, there's hope. May all your days together be blissful and full of love. My ex never told me she loved me. Marriage of over 16 years. I am not without blame for the failure of marriage, but she sure did not contribute to maintaining the relationship. I am happy for you. Wish you and your partner will have many happy years. I think this may be my favorite Reddit post I've ever read on this damned app. Always I see comments of divorce, or why are you in this relationship, whenever there's conflict. But this? Wow, thank you for sharing. I wish only the best for you and your loved ones. I will hold on to this story for a long time. I cannot express how this has impacted me today. So just, thank you for being you. This is a lovely story, and I'm sincerely happy for you. My husband and I have gone through a similar existence for the last 10 years. We've been married for 35. It's gotten pretty toxic. Last night, he texted me that we need to find a way to be kinder to each other or go our separate ways. Then he also texted go get laid. So, we are clearly in a very dark place and I'm not sure I can turn to him after this move. But back to you, now that you've made the right moves, I wish you many years of love, happiness, and stellar communication. I just read this post and I feel like I could just ball up and sob. It was really brave of you to put this on paper and give it to the world to read. Never mind actually having the experience that you described. I'm happy to know that there are people who go through this and are able to fix it in time instead of disposing of one life to start another. In this day and age, that is considered completely normal to throw away what doesn't work for you and find something that does. The thought of that has always shaken me to my core. Glad you could join us for another episode of relationship stories that'll make you feel all the feels. If these tales moved you, please like, comment, and subscribe. Turning on notifications will ensure you never miss a beat of these heartwarming stories.